Welcome back. This is Ghana Tonight. We're live on TV Ghana on Facebook, and we've been focusing on what's been happening in the aftermath of this Akosombo Dam Spillage. A number of communities that were affected. The water has started receding, but then again, the impact is still telling on these people who are living in these areas. Now, Dr. Matthew Poku-Prempeh, the Energy Minister, together with the VRA boss, were in Parliament earlier today. He's really shied away from answering questions on whether the affected residents of the dam spillage will be adequately compensated. We're talking about resettlement. Dr. Matthew Poku-Prempeh says the assessment of the situation is still being done by the Government Interministerial Committee, which must be allowed to do its job. And then what the way forward will be, we'll get to know. Take a look.
Never true that there's a point mark for VRA to spill. What is true is that there's a point mark for the dam integrity, which VRA works towards, not breaking that point mark. The Speaker, what has happened this year, and I can say that going forward, nobody can stand here or anywhere and say it won't happen again.
Well, that claim about MPs being engaged before the spillage, you recall that the Minister for Sanitation and Water Resources have made a point. That was repeated today in Parliament. Samuel Okujeto, Blackwell North Member of Parliament, vehemently questioned that and denied that none of the MPs were actually engaged before the spillage. This is what happened in Parliament. Take a look.
We are told that before VRA officials spilled, members of Parliament were consulted, were part of the stakeholders consulted. I can speak for myself. I was never invited to any meeting. I was never consulted. We have had enough. We are down. We are traumatized. We have lost everything. The last thing we will countenance are blatant falsehoods. We will not accept.
Well, so that was an issue that had to be put on record. But then the question about resettlement, what's going to happen next? Because compensation is just one thing and resettlement is a very bigger issue, different from any form of compensation that these people will be given. And Saji Amedono, who is a Deputy Director General of the National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, has been speaking about what they are doing, especially to have people who are now taking shelter in the classrooms to move so that children in these affected areas can have the academic work resumed. I spoke to him earlier on 3FM. Take a look.
After the structural integrity assessment and the environmental impact assessment is done, those structures that give way during the flooding, especially clay buildings, we are actually compiling that data as we speak. I'm sure by tomorrow that data might be out. That even if we ask everybody in the safe haven now go back because the water has receded, there will be people who will not have homes to go to. So that is the next phase that we'll be working on. And normally these issues are also escalated to the Interministerial Committee. And I know we'll be getting a response on that very quickly.
Now, also there's concern about, as you indicated, these areas that the waters have not receded completely. A number of them are still in the school buildings or the classrooms as well. Any immediate plan to get the people who are seeking safe haven and in these classrooms so that the students can return back to their schools to get education?
Well, there are some arrangements going on. I can safely say that in Central Town, we've been able to deal with the issue largely, and academic work has resumed in almost all the schools. The challenge is North Town. We are working closely with the Regional Directorate of Education and the District Directorate of Education. Currently in North Town, tomorrow, even the Director General of Education is also coming here to look at alternatives for the other schools that have not been able to start academic work. some of them have started under trees and in the compound of the safe haven. I mean, temporary to start with. But when the Director General of Ghana Education Service comes tomorrow, we'll have maybe a concrete strategy to get all these schools reopened or start classes for the students who attend these schools.
Well, that's Sajisa Jamedono, who is Deputy Director General of NADMO. But in the quiet village of Seko, approximately 200 houses have crumbled, compelling residents to seek shelter outside their once secured compounds at night. Gordon Asediba visited this community, bringing us a first-hand report on challenges faced by the affected residents.
It's about 6:30 p.m. here in Seko, a village in the Volta region that has been heavily impacted by the Akosombo Dam Spillage. For the past weeks, their homes were submerged in water and later collapsed. Now, most of them do not have a place to lay their heads, so they do gather in this compound to hold body and soul together. I'm sure you can clearly see some mosquito nets that have been mounted here with mats on the floor, with children and kids as young as 2 and 3 years old seated here with sadness drawn all over their faces. They have been telling me that ever since their buildings collapsed, they have no homes to lay their heads. So they do gather here at night, spend nights here, do have good conversations just to be able to sustain themselves throughout their nights and the pain that they do go through. I have been speaking to some of them, and their parents tell me that most of the kids here are battling mosquito bites at night, even though they have mosquito nets here that protect them, and their situation here is really disturbing. It's a heart-wrenching story, and they do need critical attention. They have been to the safe havens, but they tell me that the place that has been mounted for them to go and seek safe haven has actually been full, packed with a number of people from other neighboring communities. So when they got in there, they did not get space where they can lay their heads and do have a cool mind while they think about what next to do the following day. So they had to return here, and this is what their story has been. They have no one to come to their aid. They are distressed. They are so sad. They have no hope.
Within these days, I'm in my room, and unfortunately, I woke up in the dawn to come and urinate. And before I get out from the room, I've seen that all my buildings have collapsed. And when I turn back, I've seen that they are in the water. Yes. And in fact, it pains me, but I have nothing to do about this. So please, I'm pleading that the government will help me so that I can take care of my building, because right now I'm a student. I don't know how to get money and build this thing again. So please, I'm pleading that the government will help us to build up our buildings again.
So how do you manage to sleep here at night?
Although it's very bad, but we will just manage. I and my grandma, you yourself, I know maybe you've seen my grandma. She is very old, so we don't want to get far from her, so that if anything is happening to her, we will not know. So every day we are with her. So that's why, though here is not big enough, but we manage to sleep with her here, so that we can know everything that is happening to her, because she is not feeling well.
The water come and destroy everything in our house, so we are suffering. We just need help. We need them to help us for our building. This is where we are sleeping now, so we need help. We want them to help us now.
Well, so that's where the conversation about the resettlement really is telling and very compelling. And this is something that will stay the same. Tomorrow, Gordon Asediba is still in this community, so we'll continue the conversation about how these people who have lost their buildings will be resettled. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. And there's more news on 3news.com. Join me tomorrow at 5 p.m. on 3FM 92.7 for Hot Edition. On behalf of the rest of the team, we want to say thank you so much for staying with us. I am Alfred Okonse. Have a good night.